She walked into court seeking justice. What she found was two cops ready to ruin her life. What they didn't know, her husband was Delta Force. The air inside the Mecklenburg County Courthouse was heavy, not just with silence, but with something deeper. Suspicion, prejudice, fear. As Immani Daniels stepped through the grand oak doors of courtroom 3B, every pair of uniformed eyes seemed to follow her like shadows in the light. She wasn't there for drama. She wasn't even there for justice, really. She was there for closure, a simple hearing about a decades-old land dispute tied to her late grandmother's property. Nothing more. Or so she thought. But justice, it turns out, doesn't always wear a robe. And prejudice? It rarely hides for long. Immani had been a paralegal before. She knew how the legal world worked, its rhythms, its faces, its flaws. But today felt different. The stares were colder, the murmurs sharper. Officers Truman and Hensley stood by the doorway, not guarding it, but blocking it. Not welcoming her, but judging her. Their smirks weren't casual, they were calculated. Like they knew something she didn't, or thought they did. Truman, tall and squared off, wore authority like a weapon. Hensley, bulkier and meaner, didn't bother hiding the contempt in his eyes. Immani held her ground anyway. That's who she was. A woman who didn't flinch even when the ground shook. You've got the right to stand tall. Always, her husband had told her. His voice echoed in her mind like armor. Major Dominic Daniels, Delta Force commander. A man trained to dismantle insurgencies, extract hostages, survive the unthinkable. To the world, he was a weapon of war. To Immani, he was a gentle fire. A protector. He was hours away, back at Fort Bragg, likely running drills in silence while her world bent under the weight of intimidation. Still, his presence pulsed in her memory. If you need me, I'll be there. As the judge entered, silence fell. The hearing began. Her attorney, Eugene, calmly laid out the documents, the deeds, the records, the irrefutable proof that this land had belonged to her family for decades. The judge seemed receptive. For a moment, it felt like things might go according to plan. But prejudice rarely announces itself in full. It leaks through whispers, through glances. Truman repositioned himself, looming behind the jury box. Hensley paced by the wall, whispering to another officer. Their mockery wasn't loud, but it was sharp, cutting, deliberate. Immani straightened her spine. Her voice, when she spoke, was measured steel. The property lines are clearly defined in county records. The developer's claim surfaced only after the discovery of valuable minerals on that land. The truth didn't stop them. In fact, it provoked them. At recess, the courthouse emptied into the hallway. Immani walked toward the restroom, only to hear the footsteps behind her, Truman and Hensley. Their voices slithered toward her ears. Thinks she owns the place. Big mouth. Probably lose everything by next week. She clenched her fists. She kept walking. She would not let them see her bend. But behind those taunts was a challenge, one that would awaken a storm even they couldn't contain. That night, long after the courtroom emptied and the gavel's echo faded, Immani lay in bed wide-eyed, staring at the ceiling. Every creak of wood, every rustle of wind felt loaded. When the faint hum of tires broke the silence, she pulled the curtain back. A police cruiser, parked, engine running, lights off. She waited. 5 minutes. 10. An hour. It didn't move. Was it routine? A coincidence? Or was it a message? By morning, the cruiser was gone, but her peace was too. The next day brought Aaron's groceries, a pharmacy run, a stop at her cousin's law firm. Immani hoped routine would ease the dread, but dread, it turns out, doesn't follow logic. It lingers. Everywhere she went, there it was, a shadow, a glance, a cruiser, and then a face. Officer Truman, parked in a tinted patrol car, smiling like a cat with a trapped bird. He raised two fingers in a mock salute as she pulled out of the gas station. He followed her, turned where she turned, stopped when she did. This wasn't oversight. It was surveillance. It was intimidation. She pulled into a busy public library, hoping the presence of cameras and strangers would ward him off. It worked for now. He drove off slowly, but not before making sure she saw him one last time. Immani sat frozen in her car, hands trembling on the wheel. They weren't hiding anymore. These weren't veiled insults in a hallway. This was something bigger, dirtier, more dangerous. She found a quiet corner in the library, dialed Dominic's number. No answer. She left a message. Her voice calm but barely. Dom, I don't want to scare you, but something's wrong. They're following me, watching my house. Please call me, back at Fort Bragg, 2 hours away. Immani Daniels finished a grueling field drill under the North Carolina sun. By the time he reached his phone and heard Immani's message, his blood chilled. He called back instantly, no answer. He left a message, firm but tight with concern. Call me. I'm here for you. Whatever this is, we're handling it. Hours later, she returned his call. Her voice cracked. They followed me, Dom, all day. They parked outside the house last night. And they were in court yesterday, too. Truman and Hensley. Dominic didn't hesitate. I'm coming. You don't have to. I do. No one messes with my family. And with that, a man trained to neutralize threats in foreign deserts turned his full attention to a domestic battlefield. A quiet war was unfolding not with bombs, but with stares and silencers. Not with invasions, but intimidation. They had no idea who they were provoking. They thought she was alone. But now, the Delta Force was watching. By the time Dominic reached Charlotte, night had fallen. His headlights cut through the quiet streets like searchlights. He parked in front of Immani's modest home and stepped out, every inch of him radiating calm control. But inside, he was a storm barely held back. She ran to him. He didn't need words. His arms wrapped around her like armor. In that moment, she felt the tremble in her chest ease. But safety, real safety, was still far off. Tried to carry on as normal the next day. Errands, legal paperwork, a quiet dinner. But tension clung to everything. Every knock on the door, every idle cruiser on the street. And then, just after sundown, it escalated. A thunderous knock. Not once, not twice. Repeated. Demanding. Immani peered through the curtains. Truman, Hensley, and 2 more officers. No warrant. No explanation, just a fabricated noise complaint. Do you mind if we come in and look around? Immani stood tall. Actually, I do. You have no warrant. Their jaws tightened. Hensley sneered. Dominic stepped beside her like a wall. You've made your point, he said calmly. Now leave. They left, but not without one last threat. You never know when you might need our help. That night, neither of them slept. Dominic stayed up on the couch, alert to every sound, every creak, every gust of wind. Then just past 9 p.m. the house went dark. Total blackout. The only house on the block. Dominic's instincts flared. He grabbed a flashlight, scanned the yard, and saw at the breaker box Open. Wires cut. He motioned to Immani. Lock the back door. Stay low. Outside movement. Two figures creeping along the fence line, dressed in black. Not burglars, too calculated. Too confident. He approached silently. Delta 4 silent. One man spun at a faint sound too late. Dominic slammed him down in seconds. The second figure, larger, faster, rushed forward, pulling a crowbar. Dominic deflected, took him down too. Brutal. Efficient. Controlled. Then a glint of metal when reached for a gun. But Immani, from the doorway, hurled a flashlight like a missile. It cracked against the man's arm. He dropped the weapon. Dominic moved faster than fear, and had both men subdued. Under the porch light, their faces came into view. Officer Hensley and another courthouse cop. They weren't there to protect. They were there to plant fear. Or worse. Sirens screamed in the distance. This time, Immani had called 911. As cruisers swarmed the street, Dominic raised his hands calmly. Immani pointed directly at the officers on the ground. They broke in. They cut the power. They attacked us. Hensley spat out lies. They were trespassing. We got a call, but Sergeant Wheeler arrived. She didn't buy it. She looked at the evidence: cut wires, crowbar, no official dispatch. Cuff them both, she ordered. Finally, someone listened. Immani stood silent as the men were taken away. Her hands shook, but her spirit didn't. Not anymore. They had tried to frighten her into silence. Instead, they had awakened the wrong family. The headlines came first. 2 Charlotte officers arrested after breaking into civilian home. Police misconduct scandal rocks local courthouse. Hensley and the second officer, Martin, were behind bars pending investigation. But the real shock was still to come. Dominic and Immani's testimony, combined with security footage and dashcam inconsistencies, forced the department to dig deeper. And what they found went far beyond one night's trespass. Officer Truman, who had mysteriously gone absent, was discovered attempting to flee the state. He, too, was arrested. Internal Affairs uncovered a web of intimidation, bribery, and cover-ups stretching years back. It had always targeted the vulnerable, the quiet, the alone. But Immani Daniels wasn't alone anymore. One morning, her phone rang. It was the judge overseeing her grandmother's land dispute. He requested a private meeting, no press, no theatrics. "I've reviewed the case," he said solemnly, "and I've reviewed the outside interference. It won't be ignored in the reopened hearing." The courtroom was packed. Press, activists, legal observers. The world was watching now. Immani walked in wearing navy blue, her chin high, her husband at her side like a sentinel. She testified again, but this time her words held weight beyond the law. They carried truth. The judge listened, eyes sharp. Sergeant Wheeler presented evidence: falsified reports, suspicious bank deposits, surveillance abuse. And then came the gavel. "This court recognizes Immani Daniels as the rightful heir to her family's land," the judge declared. "And this court apologizes for the harassment and intimidation she was forced to endure in pursuit of justice." The room erupted. Eugene wept. Dominic exhaled. Immani stood still, then smiled. In the weeks that followed, more officers were suspended. The developer quietly withdrew any appeals. But for Immani, it was never just about land. It was about the silence she refused to accept, and the voice she had finally unleashed. She was invited to speak at city panels. She gave legal insight to women afraid to fight back. She appeared at schools, community centers, and advocacy groups. No longer a target now, a guidepost. And then a final irony. The same courthouse where they tried to break her now welcomed her back as a keynote speaker on ethical policing. The system tried to fail me, she told the crowd of officers and civilians, but I refused to fail myself. Her words landed like a hammer wrapped in velvet. Calm, but unshakable. She finished to a standing ovation. Outside, Dominic waited. His leave was nearly over. Soon he'd return to Fort Bragg. But he wouldn't leave behind a woman in fear. He was leaving behind a woman on fire. "Do you regret any of this?" he asked gently. Immani shook her head. Not a second. They thought I was just another black woman they could scare into silence. But now they know. I had a whole army behind me. Even if it was just one man, he smiled. That's all it takes. As they walked away from the courthouse steps, cameras flashed. Journalists called her name. But Immani didn't stop for attention. She had work to do. This was the story of a woman who stood her ground, of a man who answered the call, and of a system forced to reckon with its own reflection. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe for more powerful true stories. Because courage is contagious and justice is never silent.